Human connection and relationship are very important parts of our community. We invite you to stay for conversation following the end of our service. Our fellowship is committed to individual freedom of belief, welcomes diversity, seeks to promote a sense of community, and fosters religion which enriches the spirit. We would like to acknowledge that Vashon Mori Island is the ancestral land of the Squamish Coast Salish Native people, the first people here. This land was their home for many thousands of years, long before Euro-American voyagers and settlers came and displaced them. This is their traditional home, and their historical relationship with the land continues today. We honor the island itself and the Squamish people past and present. This year, our congregation has formed 6 theme-based teams of volunteers to create a wealth of diverse and thoughtful Sunday services. Today, we are going to hear from 3 members of our congregation who will share their personal philosophies following our theme of This I Believe. First started by National Public Radio, several books have been published following submissions by remarkable people. Our remarkable contributors are Margaret Mackey, Lisa Schlosser, and Vicki Claybaugh. You are in for a treat. In the spirit of being fully present, the chat room will be closed during the service. This allows us to focus our attention on the experiences we will have together without distraction. If you are having technical problems, you can get in touch with Nathan Wren, who's our tech person for the day. Whoever you are, whomever you love, however you arrived here, you are welcome.
Stephen, I think you're up. Sorry, folks. Oh, you're unmuted, or you were muted, Beth. Say again.
Do you need help, Stephen?
I don't know if he can hear us. Let me go ask him in person. Do you need help? Okay, he is having some technical difficulties. So, Beth, if we could continue on, that would be excellent.
Our chalice lighting is a quote by Albert Schweitzer. At times, our own light goes out and is rekindled by a spark from another person. Each of us has cause to think with deep gratitude of those who have lighted the flame within us. My welcoming words originated from Linda Hart, who shared this with us in an earlier service, and I really enjoyed them. So I am quoting Linda. What draws us here today? What brings us into the presence of each other here in this virtual space of community? We come here for many reasons: for the warmth of human company, for the few moments to pause in the hurry of our days, to learn from each other what we need to live well and truly, to celebrate this life in all its troubles and beauty, to be reminded of our own humanity and the unending power of love. We are here to be reminded of what the power of our hands and hearts can bring about when we act in the world. On this day, when we have awakened, exhaling, ready for what comes next, we are here in both gratitude and grief. Grief for all that has been lost, and gratitude for what can be healed and what goodness can be created. We pause now and ready ourselves for the new journey. As we settle in for today's service, let's take time to quiet our minds and bodies. Find a comfortable seat, putting your feet on the floor, and begin to focus on your breath. Close your eyes if you feel comfortable, allowing your focus to stay on your body and your breathing. Notice the in and out, following the air as it enters your nose, perhaps a little cool, and closely follow the breath down to your belly. In the same way, follow your exhale, noticing that your stomach pulls in a little as you empty your lungs. Continue, allowing yourself to simply, lightly focus on your breathing. With each exhale, imagine you are letting go of any stress or struggles you may have brought to this service. At the exhale, release your thoughts, your concerns, your burdens, just for the next breath and the next. Allow thoughts to disappear with each exhale. Allow your mind to empty as you simply, lightly, kindly pay attention to the in and out of your breathing. Notice your body as the chair holds you close. If you feel any tension as you sit, imagine breathing toward the tension, releasing it ever so slowly. Your mind sends the breath to the part of the body that is stiff or uncomfortable. Allow this breath to soften your pain, to release your discomfort. As you continue to focus on your breathing, notice your sense of relaxation. You're letting go. You are present in this moment with each inhale and exhale. Slowly open your eyes and return to being here in community. As a caring community, we set aside time to share the joys and concerns of our members and friends, honoring the common humanity and sacred spirit within each of us. We support each other in difficult times and celebrate our joys together. If you have a joy you would like to share or a burden that might be eased by sharing it in community, you are invited to share it. Please locate now the raised hand, either at the bottom of your screen or in the section labeled participants and next to your name, so that Nathan can locate you when we start sharing our joys and concerns. When it is your turn, be sure to unmute yourself. Today, in the practice of deep listening, after each joy or concern is expressed, allow for a moment of silence We'll first take a moment of silence before sharing. Okay.
Alrighty, and in case you're having trouble finding the, sorry, Bethel, and spotlight you. In case you're having any difficulty finding the raise hand reaction, it's also in the reactions section, which should be at the bottom of your screen next to participants and share screen. So feel free to utilize that as Pam has done, and we'll start with her. Pam, feel free to unmute.
Margaret Mackey has been a friendly face at VIUF for many years. She first learned about UUs from her husband, Melvin, whose brother introduced them to the Unitarians. When they went one summer Sunday to the Tacoma church, the doors were closed. Alas, they took the summers off. Does that sound familiar? Margaret's favorite thing about our congregation is the camaraderie that she feels among us. She manages Northwest winters by tucking in and accepting the weather. She loves to proclaim she is a pagan, obeying the passing of the seasons. Welcome, Margaret.
This I believe. Can you hear me?
Yep.
I am 82 years old on March 2nd. You will find that I speak from emotion, not from philosophy. I was born in Tacoma and lived until I was 21 in a house built there in 1910. It was in the Indian edition of Pierce County. I found a grinding pestle with aged finger marks, half buried under the old apple tree at that house. I sold the house about 25 years ago in sorrow. Nothing would be the same again at that place. I couldn't ever go home. You can't go home. I will share with you about that neighborhood of Polish immigrants. The names Lyskowski, Budziszewski, and Wozniewski ran down our steep, muddy alley. In one of our rough outbuildings on that alley was a hidden door opening onto a false floor where the former inhabitant of the house sold bootleg liquor to those who came down the alley, lights out, to leave money in the area under the floor. There were still liquor bottles under that floor when I sold the house. Across the dirt road in front of the house lived old Mrs. Shayak, who plucked her own geese and taught me, a timid little girl, how to plant flowers. She bore a gaggle of daughters. In the hopes of a son, her son had sent her to the next hill to attend the birth of a baby. This was common in the Polish situation at that time. She was, among other birth-related duties, supposed to keep the father of the house off the new mother. She came home, as expected, pregnant. Quote, "The pretty ones are mine," said Shayak, "but the ugly one is from the other hill." Selma Shayak taught me the first of my beliefs: to respect the lessons from those around you, even if they are very different from you. I spent my childhood playing in those old sheds around the chickens my father raised. I crawled through the floor of the shed, past the roost, down to the chicken yard on the hillside. I had a special friend, Biddy Chicken, who would come softly calling to our old back door. She came right into the kitchen. From Biddy, who died upside down on the roost after a long and happy life, I learned to accept and protect the life around us, whether it be human, animal, or our earth. Regarding religion, my family was a varied one. My beloved grandma raised me respecting the 17th century beliefs from her home in Norway that unbaptized babies would go to hell if those little ones died without the benefit of the local county pastor. And she had an old story to support that benefit. Granny did not attend our local Methodist church. My father viewed church going as an insurance policy. His family was a conservative, Free Methodist one. My cousins were old-fashioned Mennonites who wore little fluffy hats on their heads and slept in white flannel nightgowns with long sleeves and high necks. My parents attended our neighborhood Methodist church, a compromise between the Free Methodists and the Lutherans. I met a fellow in college. Melvin was the lab assistant in my physics class. He came from a farm family with grandparents who were outstanding Oregon Free Methodists. That didn't matter much at the time, but it got much more important later. Melvin had a brother, Bob, who went to the worldly University of Washington, while we were closeted at the College of Puget Sound. Bob told Melvin about those Unitarians. Melvin and I visited one of those Unitarian groups on a Sunday in June, only to find nothing doing until fall. However, a door opened for us, and we would find our church home at the University Unitarian Church in Seattle a few years later, after we graduated and were married. To talk to me about belief is tangled up with marriage. Melvin and I went to talk to my Methodist minister about our plans. My father demanded that we get married in the church so he could find out, quote, who his friends were. And none of the rest of our immediate family had any special opinions regarding the matter. In our unfortunate prenuptial talk with the Methodist minister, Melvin let it be known that he wasn't a Christian. And the ministers threatened to cancel the whole thing. I stood up for Melvin, who stood up for himself. And the whole thing went ahead. The day before the wedding, the minister got his revenge by placing a table right under our noses in the sanctuary at the place where we were to stand when we got married. But I believe my father talked him into moving his altar far enough back to allow our ceremony. Another belief showed itself. Our wedding day was a real carnival. Melvin's family arrived en masse, needing to iron shirts, etc., at my humble home. In our backyard was an open, smelly cesspool dug by my father because the plumbing was not functioning again. My mother made the best of that, saying that the rhubarb growing around the hole in the ground was the best we ever had. It was one of the hottest June days on record in Tacoma. The place was a madhouse. I snuck off to our Norwegian neighbors to take a shower. I ran up the stairs of the church late for the wedding. with the hot sanctuary ablaze with candles. But we did it. We shared a belief in the future. There is more untold to this account. One more account for you regarding my belief. This I believe. By 1965, I was the mother of 2.5-year-old twins. We lived in the ground level of a triplex on a brushy hill close to the Seattle Goodwill, if you're familiar with that area. Nasty neighborhood, but okay for us as long as the kids were small. My teaching days in the Seattle School District taught me that disturbed children were always available for research at the Bailey Gatzert Elementary School, which could be the ones ours would attend. We planned to flee the area as soon as we could afford to do so. One morning, in the gray light of dawn, someone beat on our door. I answered. There stood a homeless man, a bum. He had my twins in their little walking blankets in each hand. Lady, are these yours? He said. He had returned my daughters, who had escaped the house and paid him a visit in his nest in the woods. Here I learned a big lesson in respect for my community. I believe in my community. All I did at the time was snatch my kids away from him, but I learned that lesson in respect later when I calmed down and thought it over. This I believe. Whatever took care of me, if anything did, before I became cognizant, will give me the same care after I am gone. I will try to leave this place better than I found it. I believe the words of William Cullen Bryant, quotes, and when thy summons comes to join the innumerable caravan that moves to the mysterious realm in the silent halls of death, thou wilt go, sustained and soothed by an unfaltering trust. And this I believe. And approach thy grave like one who wraps the drapery of his couch about him and lies down to pleasant dreams. I will add unexpectedly that my respect and admiration and love goes out to my dear friend's Dorothy's daughter in her situation at this time when she is wrapping the mantle of her couch about her. My heart goes to her. This I believe. Bryant wrote these words when he was 19 years old in about 1813. He was a Unitarian, died at age 84. And now you know a lot about me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Margaret. And we'll take a brief pause, Nathan. Lisa Schlosser came to the Unitarians because her daughter thought it would be a good community to join when they lived in Kansas City in 2008. The church there had 300 to 400 members. She loves VIUF because of its small, intimate size, big enough to know everybody. She loves to read, walk, sew, quilt, design, and paint her way through the winters. Welcome, Lisa.
Hi, guys. I was still writing, so I'm going to have to freestyle some of this. And what I had put down was that when Beth asked me to speak today, I jokingly said, well, now I'm going to have to think about the meaning of my existence, which was like, oh, good grief. But I realized that sometime in the last 5 years that outrage had become my daily companion. But I'd attempted always to remain positive and welcoming to those around me. I always loved the quote attributed to Martin Luther King and revered by President Barack Obama, which was, the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice. And I decided I better research it because there's nothing worse in my mind than attributing a quote to someone who didn't exactly originate it. And it turns out, which is so interesting to me, was that King was paraphrasing a portion of a sermon delivered in 1953 by an abolitionist minister, Theodore Parker, who was born in Lexington, Massachusetts in 1810 and studied at the Harvard Divinity School, and eventually became an influential transcendentalist and minister in the Unitarian Church. So some of our precursors. And in that sermon, Parker said, I do not pretend to understand the moral universe. The arc is a long one. My eye reaches but little ways. I cannot calculate the curve and complete the figure by experience of sight. I can divine it by conscience. And from what I see, I am sure it bends towards justice. King's condensing it into a single sentence made it a very nice rhetorical sort of memorable phrase. And so I'm happy to give him credit for distilling it. In 2007, when Obama was declared the winner, my then 87-year-old father called me at about 10 p.m., which was like way past his normal bedtime, exalting. He said, can you believe this? I wish your mother was alive to see this. And at that time, it was seeming as if the moral universe had begun to bend toward justice. My parents instilled in myself and my 4 siblings at a very young age that everyone deserves respect, and the way that the USA had treated Black and Indigenous folk was shameful and wrong. This conviction arose out of their own experiences as medical doctors training in low-income areas in Oklahoma City, and continued on when they moved to Topeka, Kansas, when I was like 18 months old in 1953-ish, where Pop started his residency in psychiatry at the famous Mendinger Foundation. Excuse me, and Mom began work as a pediatrician for the Kansas Health Department, serving local community health centers utilized by low-income people of all colors. She saw early on the inequity of healthcare in the United States and was instrumental in pushing out basic healthcare to underserved rural and local income families during her 37 years as the director of maternal and child health for the state of Kansas. And so in her own way, she worked on bending that moral arc. Some of you who follow me on either Instagram or Facebook may have seen the photograph of her from a the Topeka Capital Journal in 1953, giving a polio jab to, or it was a study. They drew blood for the early polio shots, and she, again, part of her public health background and desire to help people, made sure that kids were vaccinated, and it was documented, and that they had to be vaccinated for all sorts of things like chicken pox and other things, measles, before they even went to school. Drink of water, sorry. My father, we called him Pops, was a German Jew, and he escaped from Germany in 1937 at the age of 17 and ended up in Kansas City. He was a errand boy for the Jolly Jumper clothing factory, and he was given a quarter to take the trolley across town and deliver bundles of finished goods to different stores. And what he would do was he would save that quarter and not use it for the trolley. He liked to walk anyway. And he would go to the Three Boobies for 25 cents because that was how he learned to speak English. After Pearl Harbor, he enlisted in the American Army as an enemy alien. And after training in various places in the United States, he met my mother at Oklahoma State. He was shipped over to Europe in a reconnaissance battalion as Patton's army swept across Europe into Germany. And throughout his deployment to Europe, especially obviously Germany, he would search for his parents who were unable to leave the country because of his mother's severe case of diabetes. From what we've been able to tell, she probably perished on the train to the camp, and his father lived on. And when last place we chased him to was Piaski, which I believe is now part of Poland. I'm not sure, but he lived on probably another year or so. But my father never found them, didn't find other relatives as well. And this was our family's first brush with a dictator. He survived, obviously, although many of the relatives perished, along with at least 6 million others. The Allied victory signaled an end to the war, and some moral arc bending happened. Obviously, Hitler died. The Allies were triumphant. We repaired our lives and Europe's lives with the Marshall Plan, among other things. But this last week, seeing the acronym 6MWE on some of the insurrectionist shirts this week was a dismal reminder that anti-Semitism was alive in America. And this 6MWE stands for 6 million wasn't enough. In 1971, my parents were offered a chance to live in Uganda and provide public and mental health services to the people there. This was during the time of Amin, who was a brutal, bloodthirsty dictator and killed many of the people, the different tribes. He was a Nile tribe and killed many of the Baganda tribe who were more educated and perhaps a little more intellectual, but it was brutal. And we were evacuated after the Israelis, who had been brought there to teach his pilots how to fly the planes that the Israelis had supplied. And we were evacuated before the great Indian diaspora, where they were, persecuted, and many perished before leaving with their survivors, leaving the country of Uganda, and many coming to United States and Canada. My parents were evacuated to Kenya. And when Amin was deposed and a democratically elected president was installed, it seemed like the arc was bending again. Seeing the Confederate flag storming the Capitol this week reminded me we still have much work to do. And we're in what I would call an interstitial, an in-between space right now, which is really fraught with peril. Back in the spring, I had one of my son's enthusiastic Bernie supporters call me to try and politic me to vote for Bernie in the primaries. And I told her at that time, I mean, I was fervently an Elizabeth Warren supporter, although I knew that she probably wouldn't be the best choice for the Democratic Party. And I told her that I didn't really think that it mattered who was the Democratic candidate. My hope and wish was that all the young people, the old people, the middle-aged people, the Blacks, whites, browns, reds, all people would be active and work hard to defeat the horror that we've been in. Really, my third dictator in my family's life. Because it became obvious to me that we can't rely on the moral arc pushing towards justice. We have to do the work. And I told her that I was less worried about who the Democratic nominee would be and more worried about the period of time from the election and the election results coming in to the time when the new president would be inaugurated, because I saw at that time that there would be great civil unrest. And I think that we're not past that point. I think that even when the President Biden and Kamala Harris, thank God, Vice President, are sworn in, that we are at a period of time in our country where there will be continued civil unrest, as evidenced by the huge number of people that voted for the Republican Party. And the part that we all have to do is maintain our calm and survive the daily hellscape of politics that has gone on for the last 5 years. We have to remain calm and we have to remain loving, and we have to be calm and loving and calm and loving and do the work of helping others to see how justice needs to be primary in our hearts. And so for me, what's important, this I believe, is that the moral arc of the universe does bend toward justice, but it needs our helping hand. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lisa. It was very heartfelt. Vicki Claybaugh came to the Unitarian Church because all her best friends were Unitarians. She loves being part of our spiritual community. She survives Northwest winters by reading stories to her 4-year-old granddaughter on FaceTime. Lucky gal. She's happy to say that VIUF is the best thing that has happened to her since arriving on Vashon Island in 1987. Welcome, Vicki.
Thank you, Beth. VIUF, this I believe. I did not realize the length of the creative journey I would take to answer this question. I read all the notes I have from our UU services. I read and reread A Chosen Faith, a book presented to us when we joined the UUs. I was gifted a copy of Singing the Living Tradition, and I read all the readings from number 416 to number 733. Those readings and the hymnals table of contents became an outline for everything that I love, enjoy, admire, and embrace since becoming a member of VIUF. This community is what I always wanted in my spiritual life, and I am so grateful to have found you all, and I give thanks every precious day. As I began my 8th decade, I had mostly given up on finding comfort and joy in organized religion. I did not grow up in a faith community. My parents used church summer camps as childcare. I don't know how many summers I was Lutheran one week, Methodist the next, followed by Baptist. And then there was the week-long sleepaway camp. Then there was the week-long sleepaway at Catholic camp. There I was sad and embarrassed because I didn't have a rosary. In high school, my 2 best friends were Mormons, and they invited me to services, youth group meetings, outings, and after almost 2 years, they invited me for Mormon baptism. When I asked my mother if I could be baptized, she forbade me from further contact. Much later, married and living in our first home, we were overjoyed with the arrival of our baby daughter. A few weeks later, Ted decided we should drive an hour to Garden Grove to see the Crystal Cathedral and meet Dr. Robert Schuller. I was overwhelmed by the stadium-sized auditorium and the thousands of people there. 2 weeks later, on national television, our daughter was baptized there. That was the last time I ever went there. A year or so later, Ted and I agreed to investigate churches closer to our Pacific Palisades home. St. Matthew's Parish was 5 minutes away and family friendly with 42 acres, a toddler through 8th grade school on site, a swimming pool, and a huge playing field. The church was an A-frame cozy with lovely windows and light. We were so surprised when our first Sunday service, there were only a handful of people there. The old priest ranted and raved about the war in Vietnam for the entire service. We were pleased when we learned that he would retire soon. Our next visit was to attend the first service with the new priest. After a few weeks, we decided to join that church. This community became the center of our lives. Our baby girl and I started in Mommy and Me classes. She moved on to preschool just as her brother was born. Ted became a vestry member while I volunteered in the Sunday school and for their fundraisers. We made good friends when we joined the young couples group. In October 1978, our church, along with 87 homes, burned to the ground. The school was saved. As we swept up the ashes, I made a commitment to work with the rebuilding committee. In March 1983, a new church was dedicated with a standing room only, packed, brand new, huge sanctuary. The school was thriving, and our now 3 children were in preschool, 3rd grade, and 5th grade. For assorted reasons, too many to mention, our family made the decision to leave LA. In August of 1987, we moved to Vashon Island and enrolled our children in Vashon schools. For the next 2 years, we tried to be Episcopalians again, but the politics of the island church at that time were very uncomfortable, and we stopped going. Our lives were busy, and we just simply stopped all Sunday services. Then years later, we became empty nesters. With Ted's encouragement, I agreed to check out the Catholic Church, St. John Vianney. After 2 years, including a week of weekly catechism with Father Mark, we were ready to join the church. We were called to his office and told that because Ted had been married before, we would have to have his marriage annulled before we could be allowed to join the church. Stunned, completely stunned. We walked out the door and never looked back. Catholic guilt is real. Moving on. I first visited VIUF when my dear friend Susan Sullivan gave a talk about her Camino de Santiago walk. Her joy, her passion, her love, her spirit of adventure drew me in. That day, I also realized that several of my close friends were UUs, Ann Lewis, Kathleen Davis, and Amy Huggins. I went to a few more UU services by myself. Then in the summer of 2016, Ted became very ill and was hospitalized for a time. Our life was filled with almost daily doctor appointments for several months. By February of 2017, Ted was in recovery mode, but feeling very vulnerable. One Sunday, I was lonely, tired, and sad. I could not leave Ted alone, and I asked him to join me for the UU fellowship. Tagged along reluctantly, but I was thrilled to have him walk the 2 blocks from our home to Lewis Hall. He sat quietly next to me with his eyes closed. Then the singing started. Oh, we give thanks for this precious day. Ted opened his eyes and tears flowed. For those gathered here and those far away, he reached for my hand. For all we share with love and care, oh, we give thanks for this precious day. For the rest of the service, he was quiet, but it was a peaceful quiet. Later that day, Ted and I talked. Vicki, I did give thanks. I thought to myself, I was lucky to be here, fortunate to be cared for by you. He went on. When the children gathered up front for the story, I was so moved. And I was even more moved when the children left and the congregation reached out their hands as if in blessing and sang, go now in peace. Go now in peace. May the spirit of love surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go. Love, love, that is what church is all about. Ted wanted to learn more about the UUs, attend more services, join in. We went to UU circle dinners and a fundraiser dinner at the Tacoma UUs. Ted and I joined the Sunday setup teams, making treats for coffee hour and decorating Lewis Hall with flowers. Ted served at the UU Wednesday night dinners and went to the Tacoma Detention Center on Saturdays. I gathered and delivered coats and backpacks for released detainees. I organized a dinner for the UU-sponsored OWL program. We helped with the linen, dishes, and glassware and flowers for the garden party fundraisers. We went to Seebeck's summer family camp with the UUs. About a year later, Ted and I stood up with others and declared that we wanted to join the Unitarian congregation, fellowship, I should have said. The best decision we ever made. We found a church home that is comfortable for both of us, not filled with religious dogma or guilt, accepting of all people, all colors, all genders, all beliefs. A very thoughtful and dedicated group committed to community, families, social justice, activism, and having fun. We never looked back. We're Unitarians.
Thank you so much, Vicki.
Got a bark.
Got a bark.
Our love calls us to act for peace, social and economic justice, freedom of belief, and protection of the planet and its inhabitants. As individuals and as a congregation, we engage in worthy local and global causes. We stay informed on issues of our time. Though each step may seem small, we persevere, our spirits renewed by involvement. By our actions, we hope to inspire others to join us in this work. Today's offering supports this congregation, our beloved community. We encourage people to make a donation in a jar at home or through our website. Please take a minute to locate your checkbook or wallet and your jar and set aside your offering for today. This is your opportunity to give generously. Also on the screen is our PayPal connection, and so you can consider paying online as well. As for me, I'm putting my money in the jar. Please join us at home and singing alongside the video, as Vicki pointed out so beautifully. Oh, we give thanks.
Oh, we give thanks for this precious day, for all gathered here and this far away, for this time we share with love and care. Oh, we give thanks for this precious day. Oh, we give thanks for this precious day, for all gathered here as those far away, for this time we share with love and care. Oh, we give thanks for this precious day.
Okay, Beth, now it's me, right? Okay, great. I'm filling in for Stephen, sorry. All right, closing words. I'm not sure what it's called, but it's by Michael White. It says, what we recognize and applaud as honesty and transparency in an individual is actually the humble demeanor of the apprentice, someone paying extreme attention to themselves, to others, to life, to the next step, which they may survive or they may not. Someone who does not have all the answers, but who is attempting to learn what they can about themselves and those with whom they share their journey. Someone, like everyone else, wondering what they and their society are about to turn into.
And the video, Nathan?
Got you. 1 second. Okay, here we go. Thank you for your patience, everyone.
And when I For a new hours are before me. I vow to live fully in each moment, and to look on all beings with compassion. And when I wake, let me wake like sunrise, radiantly. And when I rest, let me rest like sunset, contentedly, without worries. And when I cry, let me cry like the rain, cleansing me with all my heart. And when I dream, let me dream like a cloud, vividly, in my true
This marks the end of our formal service. I want to give special thanks to Margaret Mackey, Lisa Schlosser, and Vicki Claybaugh for their remarkable presentations on this, I believe, and to Nathan Wren. So this is the time for announcements. Does anybody have any Vashon Island Unitarian Fellowship announcements to make?
Pam, you're up first.
Okay, I just want to remind people that in 2 weeks we'll be having our book club book. It's called The Book of Joy, and it's by Desmond Tutu and the Dalai Lama with Douglas Abrams. It's how to find joy no matter how terrible circumstances might be in your life, and it has some really nice thoughts in it. I'm enjoying reading it. So I hope you'll all join us there in 2 weeks, just after the Sunday service. In the meantime, I would like people to send me their suggestions of what book we should use for our February book club. So the sooner you can get those into me, I'd appreciate any suggestions. Thank you.
Thanks, Pamela. Julie.
Hi, everybody. At the end of January, we will be looking at a different tradition for the springtime coming from the Jewish faith. It's something that we did as a group after services last February, I guess. I'm losing track of the months. And it's called a Tu B'Shvat Seder. I will be including things that would be good for you to gather so we can all participate together. and it includes various fruits and drinks. And so you can plan on sort of enjoying a bit of refreshment during, I believe it's the 27th. And I will communicate with the powers that be so that each person who chooses to participate will be well equipped. So I just wanted to give everybody a heads up. And I wanted to let you know that this has been the high point of a week with many ups and downs. And I truly appreciate this group. Thanks.
Thanks, Julie. Tanya.
Hi, I want to invite you all to join the service next Sunday. It's Racism, a Moral Call to Act. And what we say in the publicity paragraph, the protests in the street, the Democratic platform, and the National Unitarian Universalist Association all compel us to reject racism on moral grounds. We invite you to join us in exploring how we can act to banish systemic racism from our everyday lives and from our institutions that determine where we live and work. So hope to see you then on the 17th, next week. Thanks.
Thanks, Tanya. Any other announcements? Jessica, I'm seeing you.
Hey everyone, I'm just reminding you that the women's group is this week. It'll be Wednesday at 6:30 via Zoom. And the topic is Imagine. And so all of the women who want to connect with the divine feminine and walk the path of feminine identity. We are an inclusive group, so our trans sisters are welcome. And if you'd like to be on that email, you can email me for a reminder. Jessamama, JESAMAMA at Yahoo for a reminder for the women's group. And I hope to see you.
Thanks so much, Jessica. Any other announcements?
Well, in that case, let's finish up by singing Go Now in Peace. And
Yay.
please unmute if you want to do this together. Go
Go now
Now
in
in
peace.
peace.
Go now in
Now in
peace.
peace.
May
The
the
spirit
spirit
of
of
love
love
surround
surround
you everywhere, everywhere you may go.
Yay.
Like
I'm opening up the chat room. It was lovely seeing everyone.
Yeah. Thanks, Beth. That was a marvelous service.
It
Thank-
was.
Oh,
Mhm.
loved it. Yes, thank you.
Thank you all.
I love hearing people share what their beliefs are.
wonderful.
Each of these three women were just amazing.
Yeah.
Yes, this is always one of my favorite services, and it's always so fine. And thank you to all three of you. It's very special today.
Oh, thank you. It was so nice of you to take the time to listen to me.
Oh, gosh.
I wanted to make a comment about the two tapes. I mean, the two videos,
Yeah,
because I recognized Elizabeth Stevens
yes.
in the first one, and I believe that she's the one who introduced that to us.
Yes.
There is love, when she was our frequently visiting minister here at VIUF, and much beloved. So she was in that one. And of course, the second one, much of you recognized a lot of Vashon people.